We are so fortunate in this industry to have a number of wonderful leaders. And during times of uncertainty and transition, there's nothing more comforting than to have great leaders at the helm, especially those who are both courageous and nurturing. Tonight, we're going to be presenting 3 of our executive awards to just such leaders. To help me do that, I'm very pleased to call on a leader of the industry, Joe Sheridan, Chairman of our Board of Directors. Joe, will you join me on stage, please? It's with great pleasure I share with you the story of the 4 leaders we celebrate tonight.
The grocery business is a very humbling business. Success can only come through dedicated efforts every day.
There's an old saying that they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. It's easy to preach this and harder to always live out.
Personal relationships are critical. Strengthen existing relationships and ultimately spend time with people and really get to know them.
Think about how to protect your core business, but also at the same time chase your dreams. If you can do those things together, I think you'll be successful.
Leadership starts with establishing a vision for growth and then putting the right people and organizations in place to pursue that vision with vigor. And one of Coca-Cola's longtime strengths has been the intense cooperation, collaboration between us and our franchise bottling partners.
That's saying who's driving the bus. The customer drives the bus, regardless, and everyone that figures out how to adapt to what they want the quickest and in the best ways is going to win.
You need to create an environment that fosters candid feedback and a culture that caters to personal growth. A great team player is a person who is as committed to the success of others as their own.
You got speed, and you have to combine that with the balance of who you really are as an organization and who you really are as a leader. So you've got to act fast, faster than you ever did before, but you've got to keep in mind what you really are about. Those 2 things will tug against each other, but ultimately you'll find a way to achieve both.
Great leaders know when to delegate, and they know when not to delegate. They know that when you have the big bet, it's okay to stay dead center of that initiative. Those are the moments that you stay involved.
When you take risks, you're gonna have some hits and you're gonna have some misses. That goes with the territory. So you learn, you move on, and don't make the same mistakes again.
If you can create an environment where people love coming to work every day and making a difference, everything else takes care of itself. I think what supports that is a true caring environment for each other and for our customers.
But I think as a leader, we often get trapped into thinking, well, we have to have a real clear and dynamic, awesome mission statement. I disagree. What counts the most is, do your associates, do your employees really know what's important to you and important to the organization? And if they live those values and live up to the mission of the company, then we've got a winner.
We as an industry need to be innovative, and we need to be really focused on how the customer's evolving. Status quo will never work anymore. We need to be very aware that things are changing and we need to be changing with it.
I challenge people to just not limit themselves, because I think there's a natural tendency to say, that's probably too hard or it's probably too much of a stretch. And so I've always just tried to challenge people. It's probably going to be hard, it's probably going to be impossible, but what if we could do it?
Now let's meet our honorees who will receive their awards and join me in a panel discussion following the presentation. Our Albers Award winners, Muhtar Kent and Sherman. Next is our Wegman Award winner, Mr. Tom Heinen. Our Rabb Award winner, Mr. Randy Edeker. Come up here a little bit. Thank you, Mr. Sheridan. Well, hello, gentlemen, and congratulations to all of you. We're delighted to have the opportunity to present these awards to you, and also it's a pleasure for me to be able to have an opportunity to ask you a few questions about leadership and some of the things that you all have been engaged in throughout your careers that have led to this presentation from FMI this evening. So one of the things I've been reading about is how the morning routines of great leaders set them apart from other individuals, and how those things that they do every morning sort of set them up for success. Maybe it's just about getting more sleep, I don't know, but I'd be interested in the things that you have to say about your morning routines and how you think those things set you up for success. Muhtar, can we start with you?
Sure. First, congratulations to my fellow honorees. Great to be here. I didn't really have I started really with an evening routine rather than a morning routine, just preparing a few notes for the next day in the evening before I go to sleep. And I preferred not to have a morning routine because the amount of travel I did, 40 to 50 countries a year, waking up in different parts of the world, that worked for me much better with an evening routine. And what I really wanted to make sure in the morning is that when you're a food and beverage company and you connect with your consumers 2 billion times every day, the thing that keeps you up at night is making sure that your product quality is intact every single morning, every single night, as you go to sleep every single morning. And so that's the only thing that I would make sure that I was up to speed on every morning before I started my day. But I'd prepare for the next day in the evening, my evening routine.
Terrific. A little different approach. Ern, what about you?
You know, over 40 years, it was probably similar in many ways and different in others. But as I thought about the question, thank you for giving me the advance notice to think about it. What I realized that I did was I gave myself time to think. Now, when I was a younger guy, I would get up and go on a long run, and I did that not every morning, but almost every morning, and that alone, solitary time to reflect and think about the day gave me plenty of time, I think, to feel like I got to jump on things. Now, 40 years later, I think I do it playing the guitar. So I sit there and I strum a little bit and I think, and so that, along with staying current on things that are going on in the world and in our business. But I tried to keep business and the rest of my life separate, and I think the morning was a good time to try to keep those things apart, because as soon as you hit the door at work, it was full on. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, that's interesting. It's interesting to hear your perspectives from the supplier side. I'm curious, Tom and Randy, whether there is any difference in a retail perspective. Tom, let's start with you.
Well, Renee and I have 2 Great Danes and a St. Bernard, which is about 450 pounds of dog. And so it is my voluntary job to get up with the dogs, let them out, feed them. I make myself a smoothie, and before I can make my smoothie and finish it, the dogs have jumped back in bed with Renee, and that's pretty much the message that says I'm not going back to bed. So I still wonder whether my brother trained those dogs to do that to make sure I went to work right away. The discipline, I think, that it creates helps with the day. Gets you organized, you follow discipline.
Interesting. Randy?
Well, I mean, we have a culture of early rising for 88 years, and so I've worked on that to make it less early, but I'm still working on that. No, I think that my routine, I'm not much of a breakfast person. I'm pretty much up and go, and what I like to do most of the morning is just talk, see what's happened overnight, 88,000 people, make sure everybody's okay. Because with that many people, there's invariably something that could have happened to someone somewhere, and we'll touch base on those things. But I find, I like to talk. I usually, when I talk to my people, I hear what's going on, I hear what their opinions, their thoughts are, and it really helps me formulate where we go and what we do. And the mornings are always great for me because I feel like everyone's fresh, and you're thinking about what has to get done. So I like to talk to my people. So.
It's interesting. You think about the organizations represented up here because each of the organizations represented here has a very long history. You just talked about Hy-Vee having 88 years. I think Heinen's is 90 years old, and Coca-Cola is getting ready to celebrate a big anniversary. I think, is it 123 years?
No, 1886. So basically 130 years old.
Okay, so long-standing companies here. I'm curious as to how companies that have such long histories, how you and your leadership roles are able to maintain the relevance of the companies, the ability to deal with the changing times. We've just spent a couple of hours talking about all of the disruption that we're dealing with in the country right now and in the business community. I'm just curious if you have thoughts about how that happens. Tom, what about in your company?
My grandfather started our company in 1929, and he had several different mottos, and one of them was buy the best, sell the best, and treat your customers as guests and invite them back. And really, for 3 generations, we use different words, we modernized the language, but to be honest with you, that's pretty much how we've stayed in business, I believe. We stayed true to those, that kind of mantra.
So staying true to the founding fathers, so to speak, to the ideas and the values that they held is what you view. What about you, Randy?
Yeah, I would say pretty similar. I mean, we started a couple years later, and Charles Hyde, David Friedenberg, real small town operators, but they developed a group of words: honesty, integrity, caring, sharing, trust. They go on. We all carry them in our billfold. It's knowing what to change and what not to change. Change, evolve, keep up with the customers, follow the lifestyles, adapt quickly, but then stay true to who we are, what's important, keep the fundamentals, keep the basics, and then keep your morals, keep your ethics, do it right. And that's how I think that a company makes it to 100 years.
Yeah.
So.
And Muhtar, from a Coca-Cola perspective?
I think it's all about spending every day fusing the heritage with the future. A great heritage, but it doesn't mean anything if you can't properly, effectively fuse it with the future related and making sure that you're consumer-centric every single moment. Essentially, for the first 100 years of our life, we were a single product company. That's a little exaggeration. By the end of the first 100 years, we had about 4, 5, 6 different brands, but essentially it was a one product company. Coca-Cola was it. When I joined the company, no one in the company had ever seen what a fruit tree looked like. And now we have 4,000 products and 550 brands, and we have 28 million fruit trees under plantation. Just to give you an idea what that is, that's about the size of Belgium. You fly over it with a jet straight for about, if you put all of it together, for about 1.5 hours. So that's the extent of change. And you keep innovating. You just make sure that you provide choice, make sure that you provide moments of real pleasure and refreshment. But one thing that doesn't change, the heritage, you have to make great tasting products that people want to drink again. And that's the beauty of the heritage, but you just keep evolving, keep changing real fast.
You know, when we talk about heritage, one of the things that I have been so amazed by, but actually quite impressed by, and I think is an important aspect of food retailing, is how many of today's leaders actually started their careers bagging groceries as teenagers. And I've been amazed by that. I think about the folks who have been in leadership roles at FMI. It is a very common history. And I guess my question to you, Randy, would be, what do you think is unique about you and the path that you've taken? Because you started at a young age working in retail. You have many years at Hy-Vee.
I do.
You could just as easily have left and gone and done something different at some point. Why did you stay, and why you in this leadership role instead of perhaps others?
Well, I think, I intended to leave. It wasn't something that I intended to do for long. It was my ticket to college, and I was going to work a year and then move on. My goal at the time as an 18-year-old was I was going to be a college football coach someday, and that was it, and I'm still working on that. My daughters one time said, "It's so sad you didn't get to, live your dream." I'm like, well, this seems to be working out okay. But, really what I found with so many people, when you're young, you think you know what you want to do, and then I say, nobody grows up, I think, and says, I want to be a grocer someday, not most anyway. I think you find yourself in something that you feel comfortable and something that you love, something that you find that maybe you have a knack for, and you stick to it. And that's what keeps you there. And the people were fantastic. I mean, they were the ones supporting you and encouraging you to move and to grow and to do better. And then I had great mentors all along the way that at every need in my life, they would come along and boost you forward and help you learn what you needed to learn in that moment. And so I think that, success, is usually a product of a lot of people's help and then a little initiative, so.
And do you continue that with folks who work with you? Do you make sure that they have the mentors they need to be able to advance?
Oh, absolutely. I think we have a strong culture of finding people with promise and people that, some folks that just need a hand, maybe don't show all the promise, but there's potential there, and pulling alongside those folks and helping them along to achieve and better themselves. And, I think part of our culture is about how do you help people better themselves through our company.
Exactly. Tom, what about the culture at Heinen's? What do you do at Heinen's to make your people want to come to work every day?
Yeah, I think our culture is probably the most significant thing we do to be successful. And we're really built around our two corporate values of honesty and respect. And we really try to deliver the message that we are there to help everybody grow and be successful, and that we're there to nurture them and not criticize them, and really get them to love coming to work. And so far it's working.
You in the Coca-Cola world, Muhtar, you referenced the creativity and the development of new products and the innovation that has helped make your company successful. Ern, from your perspective, what is it about the Coca-Cola culture that encourages that kind of creative thinking in the organization that has allowed the kind of growth that Muhtar referenced?
To me, it's an easy answer, and I think you, Leslie, and probably a number of people in the room today, if I just point to the individuals, Muhtar, you saw today and in the video, you guys have gotten to know Jim Dinkins in the last couple of years. You clearly knew Sandy all those years. My predecessor, Joe Burke, the guy following me, Jay Hard, there's one word that comes to mind, and that's passion. The passion that we have at the Coca-Cola Company for what we do, the customers that we serve, and the consumers that we try to satisfy on a daily basis, it's just inherent in the business. And where it started, how it started, I have no clue, but it's there. And
That's
I think
awesome.
we protect it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Muhtar, you've talked about how you like to talk to people and spend time with people. You're a person who has really spent a lot of time and energy trying to develop relationships, and you have them all over the world. I think you and I first met when I joined FMI at a meeting of corporate leaders in, I believe we were in Paris at the time. It was the sort of predecessor meeting to what is now the Consumer Goods Forum, and we've continued to stay in touch through that event. Why do you want to make so many relationships? What's the value to you as an individual and to your company?
Well, when I talk to young people at colleges around the country, around the world, one of the things that I always say is relationships, nurture them, grow them, and invest in them, because it's the best investment you can make in creating this close environment with other people, because that's really what gets everything done. I mean, think about it. Resolving conflicts is all about relationships. Mm-hmm. If you've built a good relationship with people, some other people, you can actually resolve a conflict because there's already a trust between the two sides. And I think I've always had a love for people, and I always say to, again, all these young people at universities, never eat alone. Don't waste that opportunity, because when you break bread is when you can actually create a great relationship. And why, we have to eat and drink, so don't waste that opportunity. Always have someone with you, and that provides a great way to keep relationships. I left the Coca-Cola Company and became a bottler in about 2 months after Roberto Goizueta, the then chairman and CEO, passed away in 1997, and worked as an entrepreneur and a bottler for 7.5 years, and then was asked to come back to the Coca-Cola Company. That was all only because I had created relationships that were powerful, and there was trust between me and the people that asked me then later on to come back. That's just one example, but you can just keep repeating those examples. It's so important. I think in politics it's important, in government it's important, in business it's important, in private lives it's important. And that's what I always would say to my children, the children of my friends, and everyone. Just make sure that, in the old days it was difficult. You had to actually write a letter, put a stamp on an envelope and send it. Today it's so much easier, so make use of it.
Well, clearly your theory and your practice of doing this has affected others in your organization, because Ern is one of the most collaborative people I have ever worked with. Ern, you have obviously found collaboration to be a strong tool as well. Now that you are retired, what would you advise the rest of us who are working on collaboration issues going forward? Give us the benefit of what your experience taught you.
You know, at times this business is kind of like telling Noah about a flood. At times this business can be pretty challenging. And when it is challenging, how nice it is to have friends. So I think the collaborative effort that at least I felt was, I knew there would be times when I would need to call on friends of mine in the industry to help us solve a problem. So the advice that I would give to those who are just getting started in this business, or maybe you're trying to find that next gear, find as many friends as you can. Be a real student of the game. Find someone you can look up to that you think really delivers on those expectations that you have in business, and then just follow your passion again. So.
That's great. One of the things that we all on this stage are concerned about is customer loyalty. This may end up being our final question, so talk to me, if you would, Tom, about customer loyalty. Why is it one of your paramount concerns, and what are you doing about it today?
I think independents have thrived on creating a little higher sense of loyalty. We had an independent operator, Tom Blishak, talked and said that we're 20% higher as independent operators on customer loyalty. But I think it's because build relationships with the customers. It's all the things you would think, right? Build relationships with the customers. I think that a lot of times we're locally very rooted, family business in our cities. But I also think today what's evolving, of course, is personalization. We've heard it a lot in the speakers today, and I think that what has worked in the past is not going to work in the future. We will need to layer over personalization and really do a lot of the things that people talked about today. But I think building a relationship with your customer, whether it's online or in brick and mortar, is the bottom line to build loyalty.
And Randy, how are you thinking about customer loyalty in the Hy-Vee world?
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about following lifestyles and have for 30, 40 years. Try to move where you feel your customer is moving first. Listen to them, ask them, talk to them, find out, and then be authentic, be transparent, be as upfront as you possibly can, and just simply respond to the customer's needs. I think it's the ability to try and thrill your customer where they have a desire, always to be there to answer the question, solve the problem, fulfill the need, sometimes even before they need it. And I think that's how you stay in business. You keep evolving and stay focused on the core of what really matters, and that's your customer.
Each of you has done an amazing job in your respective roles in your companies. And we are honored to have you on our stage today. It is our pleasure to be able to share these awards with you. And I just want to thank you for all of the support you've given FMI through the years. We look forward to working with each of you for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you.